Bentinho Massaro, and whether or not he's a bad player or a good teacher, or maybe a bit of both, as I guess most people are. So one of the reasons I picked him is because there has been a lot of controversy surrounding him. He on spiritualteachers.org, he gets a 2.3 out of 5 or 10. What is it? I don't know what the number. No, it's out of 5. So he had an even lower before, a lower score before. He's put under 1-star reviews, but yeah, it seems to have risen to some degree. So 2.3 though out of 5 isn't really great, and yeah, there's a lot of controversy surrounding him. There are articles, and there are, if you take a look at Wikipedia, for example, there are real allegations against him that are documented, and they are alleged. Most of it isn't really that you can become liable in a court of law to the justice system, but some of it is. I don't know if there have been any. This is the tricky thing, because being like coerced into having sex, those are always really subtle and really often very hard to prove. And it's a really murky area. But it says here that, for example, this including being coerced into having that with Massaro in order to be spiritually cleansed from of trauma. That is one allegation. And there's also these non-disclosure agreements, which they confirm from him and his organization. I asked ChatGPT to take a look to summarize one of the articles figured in or referenced on Wikipedia about him, and it says that he's a self-proclaimed guru, and which is, most of these things are fine, I think. Being a guru, being self-proclaimed, many people don't have a real lineage. The Buddha didn't have a lineage either. Jesus didn't have a lineage either. So I think that's fine. It's not really a problem. But there's a problem with multiple allegations hovering over you for a lot of years. And there's also, in general, I think, a problem with becoming a teacher at a very young age. Of course, there are examples of people becoming that and being successful, and not only successful in terms of monetary gains or those kinds of things, but actually being good teachers. I would say Adyashanti became a teacher relatively young, in his early 30s. Bentinho, though, he went to the Science and Non-Duality conference at, I think, 23. That's really young. Most people aren't, I think, matured enough or haven't gone through enough to really become a spiritual teacher like that. But doesn't really matter. It's just like a data point on on a data sheet, on a statistic, that a lot of them will make into a problematic pattern, which we may see to some degree here, I think. Okay. It also says here that Massaro presents himself as an enlightened being capable of extraordinary feats, such as controlling the weather. I remember this because I remember reading this a long time ago too. Teleporting and operating on a higher spiritual density than figures like Jesus and Buddha. Those claims are, of course, pretty wild. I don't think there's not too much to, it doesn't really matter to me if someone makes extraordinary claim. If someone says that they are operating at a higher spiritual density than Jesus and Buddha, maybe I wouldn't just buy it, but it wouldn't really matter to me. I would watch it, or I would just view the end product in and of itself, his teachings or whatever it is, and make up my mind. And controlling the weather and teleporting and things like that is a lot of spiritual teachers make those kinds of claims. Maybe not teleporting. I don't know about that, but it's was about to say rampant, but it's very usual to see those kinds of claims. So I wouldn't make too much of it. Just the fact that that it often happens doesn't mean that it's not bad, though, of course. There's a lot of coercion and things also in these kinds of cults, and that is, of course, a really bad thing, even though it isn't unusual. Ex-members have accused Massaro of severe psychological, emotional, and sexual abuse. Reports include incidents of public humiliation, coercion in nudity, manipulation, or financial gain. Yeah, and these non-disclosure agreements again. So these are really bad things, of course. Really doesn't look good at all. And seeing those things, I would be really hesitant to go there or recommending anyone to be in that. It would still be probably fine, of course, to look at videos, read books if he has any, but being in that kind of group, it is, it's definitely a risk reading these things. His teachings often involve extreme practices like dry fasting, which pose significant health risks. Yeah, that's true. Dry fasting can be problematic or tough on you, and it's also with these spiritual gatherings that it could be good or bad. I mean, they're not health professionals, of course. Dry fasting, a lot of people have done. I've done dry fasting myself. I think I did it 4 days when I was in India by myself, which really isn't recommended at all, of course. But this blatant recommendation, I don't know how it's done there, but yeah, it's really like a recommendation in general to people. It's I definitely wouldn't do that because it's dangerous for many people, for sure. Even prolonged water fasts are dangerous for some people. You need to, yeah, you need to know how to do it, basically. And maybe they do it in a safe way. The fact that they're doing dry fasting in itself, I wouldn't say is a problem. It's more about how they go about it. Anyway, further on, Massaro's behavior extends to manipulating followers, and this is from the Guru magazine, manipulating followers into seeing him as a divine figure. Yeah, so using techniques typical of cult leaders to maintain control and justify abusive actions. Yeah, so this is, I think, one of the major problems, not with just Bentinho. I don't know how his name is pronounced, but this seeing them as as manipulating followers into seeing them as a divine figure. The thing is that most people tend to view these teachers as divine figures, especially, of course, when they often also help in that endeavor. So I think he lets them, and he speaks about himself like that. So it further emphasizes that and makes it even more of a problem. But even when people aren't necessarily saying that they are divine beings, people in their congregation or in their group still seem to think that they are. And that is the guru. I mean, that is the guru from a lot of traditions, and dating way back. I think people see them as divine people, just like Jesus or the Buddha or whatnot. So, and they look up to them, they project things on them, and this is a real problem within these groups, because when there's no accountability for the high priest, the saint, or in some cases, the lunatic at the top, and people are believing that they are divine people, then we have people like Sogyal Rinpoche, who wrote the Tibetan book of birth and death, living and dying. Can't remember. he yeah, he hit his students. He did sexual things with them, which were totally inappropriate. And he was an a-hole, basically, towards many of them, as far as I understand what I've read. But I saw him as a divine teaching. He was blessed by the Dalai Lama, sort of. And he had free reign to do those things. And this is the problem with spiritual organizations in general, and in particular when they have these weirdos at the top acting out. And when they don't have an organizational structure that prohibits these kinds of behaviors, which there usually isn't, because it's just like a guy. Most often it's a guy who starts to have followers, and all of his shadows will come out, in that type of format, and there will be no checks and balances. There will be no repercussions for his behavior, apart from people finally having enough and going to a newspaper. But within that sort of cult-like behavior, which it also, I mean, even quote normal organizations, just Coca-Cola or some any type of organization, have these kinds of problems with people at the top behaving badly, and there's not enough repercussions for them to change their behavior. But at least there are some things there. There are like laws, and there's an HR to go to, and there are some things that ameliorate these types of problems. But within spiritual organizations, there usually isn't any at all, and they are the kings. They are at the top of it. So they word is the law, basically, just like a king, and everyone is afraid of them, and no one dares to speak up. And if you do speak up, you will be thrown out or humiliated or these things. So this is a real problem with spiritual organizations in general, and as I said, in particular with guys that are a bit out there in terms of dysfunctional behavior, which I think even most people who would end up there would exhibit some of those behaviors that are problematic, because just that amount of power, that amount of non-accountability, it makes you into a child, basically. You don't have any, you can do whatever you want, basically. You can have all that you want. You can have sex with people, you can have all kinds of monetary gains and power, and people just think that everything you do is divine, even though you're doing things that are extremely dysfunctional at times. Okay, so Massaro's, as I said, extends to manipulating followers into seeing him as a divine figure, using techniques typical of cult leaders to maintain control and justify abusive actions. So there are tons of books written about this. So, Scientology is most notable, maybe, from these kinds of spiritual cult-like organizations, but most of them exhibit this to some degree. I think I mentioned Adyashanti before, and as far as I know, his organization, he doesn't control it. He's not in control of the organization. So there's more like a normal organization where there's a leadership team, and they make the decisions. They even set his salary. And so he has distributed away his leadership, his power, which most of these teachers don't want to. They want to maintain the power, as most people, humans, actually also do, because that makes them, empowered, that they are still in control. But there are people like Adyashanti that see the problems with that type of organizational structure and makes, just transfers that power to other people. So it can be, you can do things about it. You can have a more distributed trouble with that word apparently, through an organizational structure that's different from the ones that naturally spring out of these spiritual organizations or spiritual groups that just gathers around a quote divine being. He has a history of, I'm reading again now, of engaging in inappropriate sexual relationships with students and employing heavy-handed tactics to silence dissent and enforce loyalty. So this thing with engaging in those kinds of relationships with students is, I think, in my book, it's just a no-no. You can't do that, and be a teacher. I mean, you can do it, of course. He is doing it. A lot of teachers are doing it. It's just that it's, to me, highly unethical. You can't, because of the power dynamic. It's why a psychologist or a therapist can't have sex with his client or her client or whatever it is. You just don't do that because there's a power dynamic in which the person, even if they're adults, even if you say, yeah, there's consent there, it is too murky an area to have those kinds of relationships. So you just don't have it to, that's the ethical thing to do. That's explicit for most teachers. And yeah, in the Zen tradition that I'm in, I think it was the first thing that my teacher told me. If your teacher asks for sex or money, just leave. I mean, that's you don't want to be in that. And they don't even ask for money. They live on donations, but they don't even ask for donations. I think that's hard to do in a Western culture, but yeah, that's how they do it. That's how they roll. But I think it's fine to ask for money and take take people's money for offering services, just as anyone else does. It's not okay though to have sex with your students. It's just it's um, it's impossible to do that in an ethical way because of the power dynamic. I think it would be obvious to anyone, but in this gatherings, it's not. And if the divine teacher says that, yes, allegedly at least says that, um, if you are having, what was it? Yeah, to be spiritually cleansed of trauma. If you get in bed with Bentinho, you will be spiritually cleansed of trauma. Yeah, I've heard that before. I heard that from other teachers too. It will help you in your spiritual. I think it was a Zen guy actually. So even though it's in the Zen traditions to not do it, there are Zen teachers that have been doing it. Um, yeah, spouting the same BS that you will get enlightened or more spiritual advanced through doing. And if you don't, that's the thing too. So how do you say no to a divine being that knows everything, that is omniscient, omnipresent? I don't know, but that you think as a sort of God, even everybody looks up to. Everybody says you have to do what he says. He knows everything. He knows better than you, even if you feel that you don't want to do it. He's the guru. That's you should still get in bed with him, even if you don't feel like it. And maybe he will get mad at you even if you don't. Yeah, that's not um, yeah, that's not a good thing, basically. So this is one of the big red flags, I think, to the degree that it's true. Okay, the tragic. Then was a death of a follower in the who had attended one of his retreats, which has it's has fueled concerns about the dangerous environment within his community. I think a singular event with someone, it is of course a very tragic thing, but yeah, I don't think you can draw many conclusions from it. You'll have to do a sort of take a good look at it and let the police investigate it and see if there's any wrongdoing there. I mean, there are always people doing committing suicide in different places of the world and in different groups, especially in spiritual groups. Many people are depressed. Many people have different kinds of psychiatric illnesses. So it could be because of it, of course. And then that's not good at all. But it could also just be random. Could have been, not necessarily to have anything to do with him. So I wouldn't draw any conclusions from an instance like that, unless it can be, that there's a sort of correlation between his behavior and the person, and that is well established more than this. Okay, so Massaro's response to these allegations have been to defend his methods. Yeah, nothing new there. Okay, so those are the allegations, those are the problems, and I think many of the problems stem from, yes, well, almost everyone knows by now that when we have people who are really charismatic, who are good looking, who are, they have, this charisma again. They're good at good speakers, well spoken, better than I am, and and they do have spiritual affinity. They do have spiritual depth. I've listened to some of his talks. It's not really my cup of tea, but I don't see that it's any problem really with it. I think his, I'm speaking about his actual teaching. What I've seen from looking at some YouTube clips, it's fine. I think it looks fine. I think his teachings are fine, even good. I think he has a lot of value in what he says, and this is the thing. I made a video earlier and responding to Brad Warner from Hardcore Sun, who spoke about that these teachers or spiritual masters are almost like an artist, someone performing, and you can have Osho, who obviously had Ryan Niche. They made a whole documentary about him, the Wild Wild Country, right? Not Wild Wild West, in which you can see that the organization was terribly run. He had a lot of problems. He did a lot of unethical things, but he also wrote great books. I mean, there's at least according to many many people, and also he was in many ways a good performer, shall we say. That's the thing, because when we say good teacher, I think we need to be mindful in how we use that term, because when we say a good teacher, that would encompass, or to me at least, that wouldn't just encompass or just encompass the performance. So if we say Michael Jackson is a great artist, people would mean probably just his music. They wouldn't say he was great with children, even though he may have been great with some children who he didn't abuse, but he also were really not great with children. But he made music that people loved. So he was a great performer. He was a great artist. If we take Bentinho, seems like he is at least a good artist, good performer. But when we say teacher, that is again my point. Uh, it it spans over more. It's bigger. It encompasses more than just being a performer. I think even if he writes great books or has a nice YouTube channel, he's also a teacher when he meets with people. Everything he does in his teacher role is him being a teacher. When Michael Jackson is with his children in the bedroom, he's not performing his art. He's just being an abusive a-hole. uh, and but with Bentinho, he is more of when he's a teacher, he's meeting with people, he's running the organization. That is also he's being a teacher, maybe not running the organization in itself, but and all the interactions he have with students are him being a teacher. He's in a teaching role. You can't really step out of it if you are the teacher and they are they are your students. So yeah, again, having sex with them is just a no-no. You can't do that, and doing that makes you a bad teacher, as in my book. Also, of course, this manipulation, all these kinds of things that allegedly, whatever he have done in his um, group of people. I don't know what it's called. Uh, those types of behaviors or interactions also makes him a bad teacher. So maybe the 2.3 on the scale out of 5 is a good average, or it paints a true picture of him. So he's a good speak. He's well spoken. He has some interesting teachings. He obviously speak to a lot of people, not just literally, but people like him. He's charismatic. He's smart. I mean, he's also really knowledgeable on how to make his name on social media. He also know how to charge people money. That's also a thing, of course. I mean, I don't think it necessarily is anything wrong with charging money, even charging a lot. It's up to the people there to if they want to buy it or not. Of course, coercing people into it, like Scientology does, that they tell them to take out loans and give it more and more and more money, have these insane prices. I think that's yeah, that's terrible. I don't think it's. I would, yeah, we could call it pay to win spirituality. So, but it doesn't really work. At least I don't think so. You pay to almost like what was it called? I don't remember the name now. Like the Christian have these letters that you could buy to be free of guilt. You just had to pay a lot of money, and this is the same thing. I think history has taught us a lot from the greatest spiritual teachers, like again Jesus, Buddha, those people. They didn't charge a lot. Ramana Maharshi, a more modern sage, Nisargadatta Maharaj, they didn't charge anything at all. Even they worked for free. Again, I don't think people need to work for free, but when you start to have the largest Rolls-Royce collection in in the entire West or entire world, I don't know, like Osho had, yeah, people rationalize that with saying that he's just whatever it was. To me, and I think to most people, it's kind of insane to do that. And or I mean, insane. I don't know what a word is, but definitely not sound. And charging a lot of money like this, really, really high prices. Yeah, and then flashing it, going around, like an sort of rich influencer. That's to me, I'm not drawn to it, at least. But I mean, who knows? I don't know if it speaks to people and people like it and they get something out of it and they like that kind of quality within Bentino and they like his teachings. I don't really see a problem with it. You can smoke a cigar and have expensive stuff. He seems to like it. I don't. Yeah, I'm not drawn to it myself, but I don't think it's anything wrong with it at all. Actually, it's I just don't like it. uh, I don't think it's a good look. But there are different types of spirituality for different people, and to my mind at least, whatever works doesn't really matter. So, okay, I thought I was going to watch one of his videos and comment on it, but I don't feel like it. I think this is my last video about him, and I'm probably going to continue with the teacher review. I think that's an important thing to take a good look at these teachers. I think it's great that we have the internet now and where it's possible for us to, yeah, it doesn't mean that everything's true that it's written online, but when there's a lot of accounts, with Muji, there's a whole Facebook group with I think 10,000 people in it. And there's a lot of accounts from also problems with yeah, sexual stuff within his sangha. I think, yeah, I think that's great. Not not the problems, but that people are speaking out against it, and that it, yeah, people are get to know about it, so they can make a more informed decision or research it a bit more before going there, perhaps. Again, I wouldn't mind having people looking at it, at Bentino's videos, or if it's written in the books. Maybe even take, whatever. If you feel drawn to it and you feel like it's helping you, that I think that's great. I don't think it would be a great thing to go as a young woman to hang out with him, to be in his company, and in that type of environment. There, it's of course fine for many people or most even, but it's definitely a risk that yeah, you would want to take into account. It is a risk, and that type of environment is just, yeah, yeah. There's a lot of risks. That's my only point. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.